two are the same. It's just that Project Study 1 is the title of the course in the old curriculum. But for the running curriculum, it's called Capstone Project. So the goal of Capstone Project is this is a culminating course. Actually, there are two courses, so culminating courses to see and to integrate all the learnings that you have acquired from the courses that you have enrolled in. So this is where you would be proposing a project, and this is also where you would be delivering the solution to whatever problem that you want to solve based on the proposal. So that's your Capstone Project 1 and Capstone Project 2. So what we'll be discussing this afternoon will be the deliverables and the expectations for Capstone Project 1. By the way, I understand that there are some students here who are already, I guess, done with their manuscript. There are a few of you who are already done with your manuscript for Capstone Project 1 and you are ready to present. So for these students who are already done with their Capstone Project 1 documents and are ready for proposal or for presentation of your proposal, you may not join the meeting if you wish to not join. Anyway, what we will be discussing this afternoon would be how to go over the deliverables for Capstone Project 1. So for those who already have their manuscript and are ready to do the presentation for Capstone Project 1, you may leave the room if you wish to. Because I do not think you would be repeating the same process. Now, unless you want to redo the manuscript that you're about to defend, then you could join the meeting because that's what we will be discussing, how to produce the deliverables that are needed for the presentation of your proposal. Let me just check. Ibrahim, are you already in? Not yet. Wala pa rin siya. One of the files that you would be able to see later is this PowerPoint presentation. So it's an overview of the things that you are expected to do for MIT Capstone Project. So you see that the title there is Project Study, because as I mentioned earlier, in the old curriculum, we refer to this course as Project Study. But for the running curriculum, we refer to this course as Capstone Project. But anyway, they're actually the same, as I mentioned earlier. So these are the content of the document that you would be preparing for Capstone Project 1 to be presented to your panel members for approval. So we have here the title page, you have the approval sheet, you have the table of contents, and the project overview, which is chapter 1. So that's chapter 1. So for chapter 1, you have their background of the study. We also have the importance of the study. We have the statement of the problem, objectives of the study, and the definition of terms. So that's chapter 1. Project overview is chapter 1. And then aside from chapter 1, we also have chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the methodology chapter. So we have here the contents of chapter 2. So we have software development methodology, scope and the limitation of the study, data gathering techniques, and then we have here sources of data. And after chapter 1 and chapter 2, we have the references. So these are the contents of the document that you would be preparing for Capstone Project 1, which you would be presenting and defending during the presentation of your proposal. So I wanted to go over the slides. The slides would give you an idea of what you should be writing on each part of the document. So we have here the title of the project. Anyway, as we go on the requirements of Capstone Project 1, you will be working on these requirements one at a time. But just to give you an overview and just to give some tips on how the different parts of the document that would be submitted for Capstone Project 1 should be done. So we have here the title of the project. So if you are going to write the title of your project later on, it should include important keywords. As I've always been saying, if you've enrolled in courses that I've handled in the past, I always say that every time you write a title, the title should be a summary of what the document is all about. Meaning, if I am going to read the document, or if I am going to read the title, I should say, and do not read the document, I would still have an idea on what the document content is all about without me knowing the details. So I have a rough idea of what the manuscript is all about. But of course, I do not know the details because you cannot put the details in the title. So that's what we mean by important keywords. So keywords like, are you going to develop? So you need to put some terms about development in your title. Are you going to do some assessments? So that means that in your title, you need to include terms referring to assessment. Are you going to use intelligent or are you going to use machine learning? In particular, are you going to use a specific machine learning model or technique, so for example, CNN? Then it should be reflected in your title. So are you going to do the are you gonna do the what they call this? Are you gonna do the system on a particular platform? Like, is it a mobile based? So if that's the case, then you should also include that in the title. So are you gonna develop this system for a particular locality? Like you're gonna develop this for the city of Baguio. So it should be reflected in the title. So there are a lot of things that we want to tell our readers, but we only limit the important information which are enclosed in the important keywords, which should be put in the title. So a clear description of the proposed project. So that's basically what a title is. It's a clear description of what the project is all about. If you could recall when you were in your basic education, elementary and high school, when you were enrolled in language courses like Filipino or English, your teacher would always say the title should reflect or should contain information about the article. So most especially for those who have been part of their news organization. So the members of the journalism organization of your schools in when you were still in your basic education, you would recall that you've had trainings on writing articles and you've had trainings on writing titles. So that's something that you need to take note of if you are gonna work on your title. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, we will go over your titles later. So we'll give some comments, some tips on how you would be writing your title. Another part of the document that you would be writing would be the background of the study. So this is the part of the document where we explain the background and the context of the proposed project. So this is where we would be discussing the body of knowledge as basis of our proposal and what innovation do we want to work on in order for some problems in the real world to be addressed. So this is also where we indicate why the project is an important area of project studies. So that's the background of the study. Similarly, some of the questions that you might have in mind right now would be, sir, how long should the background of the study be? How many pages should the background of the study be? We do not actually specify the specific number, or we do not dictate the specific number of pages for the background of the study, as long as you would be able to present the required bodies of knowledge that should be presented to the readers for them to be able to understand what your study is all about. So that means that in simple terms, if we talk about the background of the study, that's why it is called background of the study. You want to present all the necessary information that the readers must know in order for them to be able to understand and appreciate your study. So that's what I mean by background of the study. So if your study is a complex study with a lot of highfalutin concepts and theories, then you might want to or you might be forced to write a long background of the study because you need to explain a lot of things. But if the area that you are studying on is something which is common to the public, meaning a lot of people already know a lot of the concepts and theories that are important in your study. So your background of the study might be shorter because you do not need to discuss more concepts as compared to a study that is complicated where you need to discuss more concepts. Let me give a more specific example about that. If you're writing a paper about dogs and cats, so external features, assuming, well, this is not necessarily an IT project, but just to give you an idea, assuming you are writing a paper about external features of dogs and cats, we all know that a lot of people, if not all people, are familiar with a lot of these features, external features of dogs and cats. So that means that in your background of the study, you do not need to write a lot about the external features of dogs and cats. Probably you'll just be writing about things that are not that common to people. Not unlike if, say, for example, your paper talks about, let's say, the minerals that are found in the moon. So assuming this paper that you're writing, again, this is not an IT related paper, but at least just for you to have an idea on what you should be writing on your background of the study. So if you're talking about the minerals that are found in the moon, of course, we know that not all people, and even those who know that this particular information is just limited. We know that there are only a few people who are really familiar with minerals that are found in the moon. So that might require you to write more discussions in the background of the study because you need to discuss more information which are not known to a lot of people. So that's background of the study. So sometimes students would ask me, sir, how long should the background of the study be? How many pages? So I would always say it depends on the study that you are conducting. It depends on the bodies of knowledge that are involved in the study that you're conducting. So the more common the bodies of knowledge are, the lesser the discussion in your background of the study. But the more technical the concepts and theories and bodies of knowledge are, then the longer the background of the study might be. So put it in this way. The background of the study is where you tell people about your study. So if the people that you are talking to are already familiar with things about your study, then you will only talk about a few things. But if you are gonna talk about a study to a group of people who do not know anything about your study, then you need to explain more. So that's the background of the study. And of course, your explanations and your discussions in the background of the study should be supported by literature. You cannot just state anything here without a reference. So just some additional information on the background of the study. The background of the study also presents a situational analysis of the topic at hand, particularly giving clear global, national, regional, and local scenarios. So as I was saying earlier, the more familiar people are with your study, the lesser information you need to discuss. But as the study becomes more technical, the more topics should be discussed in your background of the study. So issues, contradictory results, reactions, as well as controversies about chosen topic will be discussed here in your background of the study. And then some additional information. So this should provide a short overview of the project and where it fits within the existing academic discourse, debates, and literature. And of course, we have here the literature review. So some of you might be asking, sir, what's the difference between background of the study and literature review? If in the background of the study, we are going to use references, literature as our basis for the discussions. Well, in the background of the study, this is where you present in an organized way the theories and concepts behind your study. So the literature would just be there to say that what you are saying is true. But in the review of related literature, this is where your discussion of the literature to support the ideas in your background of the study would be done. So you may look at the literature review as a more detailed discussion. So you may look at your background of the study as a summarized form of the review of literature, though it's not necessarily that way, but you could look at it in that relationship. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's in the background of the study where you would be providing a summarized overview of these different ideas and concepts from different literature. But in the literature review, so this is the RRL, Review of Related Literature, this is where you will be giving more details of the different literature that you have used to support the concepts and theories of the study. So a review of literature, as stated here, which should outline the most important research project that has been carried out in the research or project area. And then we have here statement of the problems and objectives. I'll be showing you later. The good thing with MIT Capstone project is that we already have a format for the objectives and the statement of the problems. So SOP would mean statement of the problem. So statement of the problems and objectives. So normally we have 3 to 4. We do not usually allow less than 3. So you do not see from our collection of capstone project and thesis and dissertation outputs less than 3 objectives and statement of the problems. We do not also, or we rarely approve more than 4. So it's really either 3 or 4. So 5 is rare. There may have been cases in the past, but that's just a few number of studies with 5 objectives and SOPs. Now there's a slash between SOP and objective and in relation to the number. So that means that there's a relationship between the number of statement of the problems and the objectives. The number of statement of the problem should be the same with the number of objectives. So if you have 4 statement of the problems, then that means that you should also have 4 objectives. If you have 3 statement of the problems, then you should also have 3 objectives. Why? Because the problems are what you want to address and the objectives are how you plan to address the problems. So that's 1:1. So statement of the problem number 1 is addressed by objective number 1. Statement of the problem number 2 is addressed by objective number 2. And statement of the problem number 3 is addressed by objective number 3. So if there's a 4th, then the 4th SOP is addressed by the 4th objective. And then we have here a definition of terms. In the definition of terms, we want to identify terms with operational definitions. And these are the terms that we put in our list of terms under definition of terms. So if we say operational definitions, that means that these are definitions that are true to your study and may not be true if we use the dictionary. So we call these definitions as operational definitions. So we do not just put any term in our definition of terms. The terms that we put in the definition of terms are terms with special meanings in your study and may have a different meaning if we use the dictionary. So what's a good example here? Assuming you use the word dog. You use the word dog to refer to a feature of your system. So you include that in your definition of terms and you define it based on how you use it in the study. So you would say dog refers to the feature of the information system where it guards data from external access and alerts the administrator if there are intrusions. Assuming that's a good example of an operational definition. So you are defining the word dog based on how you used it in your study. And of course, if we say dog and define it using the dictionary, it would refer to an animal. So that's what we mean by operational definitions. Do not just include any terms in your definition of terms. You only include here terms with special meanings and are true to the study that you are conducting. So definition of terms. So that's chapter 1. We now have here chapter 2, methodology. For chapter 2 methodology, one of the, or there are several components that are also found here. So this section of the document would give an outline of the methodology. So it would include some information stated on this slide. So you have there the approach, how to collect information or data, the information or the software development methodology, the scope and delimitation, and the sources of data. So these are the specific information that should be written under methodology. So we have here scope and delimitation. So it includes a narrative description or presentation of parameters of the research or project. Or in simple terms, if we say scope, what are included in your study? And if we say delimitation, what are not included in your study? Now, this is particularly called as scope and delimitation of the study, not scope and delimitation of the system. There's a difference between scope and delimitation of the study and scope and delimitation of the system. Because if we say scope and delimitation of the system, we are simply talking about scope, what the system can do, delimitation, what the system cannot do. But if we say scope and delimitation of the study, we are talking about the study as a whole, and the system is a part of the study. So the scope and delimitation of the system is a part of the scope and delimitation of the study. So the scope of the system is a part of the scope of the study, and the delimitation of the system is a part of the delimitation of the study. So scope, like what's a good example? Assuming you are using a software development methodology. So assuming the software development methodology has 6 phases, and you will only do the first 5 phases. So you mentioned in the scope and delimitation that for the scope, we will only do the first 5 stages of the methodology. And for the delimitation, we will not do anymore the last stage. Especially if the last stage would include some activities like maintenance of the system once the system is deployed. So it may no longer be a part of your study. So your study may only be up to the deployment of the system, but may no longer include the maintenance of the system that is deployed. So assuming the last stage talks about the maintenance of the deployed system, you may delimit that and say that's no longer part of our study. So that's the scope and delimitation. So similarly, if you are working on a specific information system, and then there are popular information systems with common features. So you may put in the scope and delimitation which of these common features would be done and which of these common features would not be done. A good example would be the automated election. We always claim that the Philippine election is automated, but in reality, it's not. What is automated is just the canvassing, meaning the counting of the votes. But the casting of the vote, the transportation of the votes, what else? The preparation for the votes, and even the declaration of the winner, these are not done automated. So you could say that in the scope and delimitation, you might say we will be doing an election system, but the election system will only do the canvassing, meaning the counting. Our election system will not do the preliminaries like capturing the data information of the of those who will be running for an office or for the different offices or for different positions. We will not include anymore the actual act of voting where people would select. That's also done manually in the Philippines. So we always claim that our election in the Philippines is automated, but it's not. It's only the canvassing which is automated. So that's the same case with the systems that you're working on. Assuming you are working on an enrollment system. And normally in an enrollment system, there are features like the system should be able to accept information about the courses, the subjects, the faculty, so that the enrollment would run. And then we have the actual act of admitting the students. We have the actual act of reserving courses for the students. And we have the act of confirming the enrollment of the students. So assuming there are 4 activities in an enrollment, which of these activities would be automated and which of these activities would not be automated? So these are usually information that are included in the scope and delimitation of the study. Similarly, you could also include in your scope and delimitation of the study the sources of data. Like you are gonna interview high school students in Baguio. Assuming that's your source of one of your sources of data. Interview students in Baguio. But you realize that you would not be interviewing all of them. So you could do some discussion in the scope and delimitation. Like you could simply say, we will only include students from private institutions in Baguio. We will not include students from public institutions. If assuming that's the case, then you put that in the scope and delimitation. What should be included, what should be done, what are expected, these are all scope. What are excluded, what will not be done, and what won't be expected, these are delimitations. And of course, you cannot do this in one sitting. As you work on your study, you keep on identifying what are the scope and what are the delimitations of your study. And then we have here research plan and timetable. It's also important for you to be able to identify how long are you going to work on a particular part. So that's the reason why we have deadlines on the deliverables. So you would be guided later on when to submit these different deliverables. And then we have here references. So references would refer to all the literature that you've used in the writing of your paper. So no matter how small or how big the information or the idea that you got from the reference, it should be included in the reference. Like I used the entire methodology of the research paper that I saw as basis for my design of my own methodology. So that means that that research paper that you've used is or would have a big impact on your study. So you put it in your references. Now, you also saw one paper where you think that one paragraph of the entire paper is relevant to be mentioned in your discussions, for example, even in the background of the study. Then you still include that article in your references. So no matter how big the contribution of these external documents are to your study or how small the contributions are, all this should be included in your references. And of course, we do not discriminate. We do not say these are the important references because I got a lot of information from these references. We do not say that. And we do not also say these are not important references because I only got a few ideas, like one sentence or one paragraph from these papers. So we do not discriminate the different references. So we include all these references. And of course, these references should be arranged alphabetically. So some additional information. So the text that you would be using for your requirement should be Career New, size 12. So we also have here for the running head page number, meaning this is the header, the information that we put on the header. So the header information would usually be the name of the section of the document plus the page number. So it's still Career New, but it should be size 9. So the page number is the section where this page belongs to should be page size 9, still Career New. And we have here the top margin is 1.2 inches, the bottom margin is 1 inch, the left margin is 1.5 inches, and the right margin is 1 inch. The left and right are really 1.5 and 1, but the top and bottom, that depends. Because what you would be writing or what you would be using to print your final manuscript is the UC paper. And we noticed that there are some batches of UC papers where the top is 1.2. So if the top is 1.2, the bottom should be 0.8. Because the total margin of the top and bottom should be 2 inches. So that should not be 1 inch. So if the top is 1.2, the bottom should be 1. If the top is 1 inch, then the bottom should also be 1 inch. So later on, once you print, initially for the documents that you would be writing, just use 1 inch for the top and 1 inch for the bottom. 1 inch for the right and 1.5 inches for the left. Then later on, if you would be writing if you'll be printing your final manuscript, you check the paper that you are using. So if the top is 1.2, automatically the bottom is 0.8. So you need to do some adjustments on your documents so that your text will not be printed on the header and footer lines. Some additional information, spacing. The entire document should be double space. Approval sheet and abstract are single space. So it's only the approval sheet and abstract which are single spaces. All the other parts of the document are double space. Your curriculum vitae, that's double space. List of references, double space. All the chapters, double space. Table of contents, double space. Title page, double space. So all parts of the document should be double space except for approval sheet and abstract. And then indentation should be 5 characters. So you check the default setting of your word processing application. So if you're using Microsoft Word, you check how many character spaces is one indentation or one tab. So we usually make use of the tab for indentation. So we check how many character spaces is one tab. So one tab or one indentation should be 5 character spaces. And then all titles should be centered, subheading should be left justified, and paragraph should be left justified. So left justified meaning it's only on the left side where the lines should be aligned, but the right side is not. So you only use left justified. Do not use full justified. Full justified meaning both sides are aligned. So it's only the left side should be aligned, not the right side. And then some additional information. So running head and the page number, position top right hand corner. So the first page of every section should not have a number. So the title page, no number. What else? The first page of the abstract, no number. The first page of every section, the first page of your acknowledgement, assuming you have more than one page of acknowledgement, no header. The first page of chapter 1, no header. First page of chapter 2, no header. Chapter 3, chapter 4, no header. First page of references, no header. First page of appendices, no header. And then, this is another document. I'll not be discussing this anymore. I wanted to go over this document. This is the second presentation. This is a discussion of how you do the citations and how you write the references in your list of references. Like, let's just see. So, for example, the author of the reference that you're using is Jones, and the document was published in 1998. So there are several ways on how you could mention this reference in your discussions, particularly in your chapter 1, Introduction and Review of Related Literature. You will have a lot of this. In chapter 2, you may have a few, especially if you are discussing some ideas that you've lifted from references in your discussion of plan of implementing your project. So you could do it in 3 different ways. You could say Jones, open parenthesis, 1998, close parenthesis, compare student performance. So meaning you are now discussing the idea that you lifted from this reference. So there is a paper published by an author with family name Jones, and the paper was published in 1998. So you want to mention that idea, a specific idea from that paper of that author. So this is how you do it. You say Jones, open parenthesis, 1998, close parenthesis, and then the idea that you want to say. So in the paper, Jones did a comparison on student performance. So that's what you discuss. Jones compared student performance, blah, 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 blah. Or you could do it this way. You put the name of the author and the year of publication after the presentation of the idea. So in a recent study of student performance, so you have here open parenthesis Jones, 1998, close parenthesis. Or you could put the name of the author and the year of publication in the sentence itself, the third bullet. So in 1998, Jones compared student performance and so on. But if you are gonna use these citations, you should be consistent as much as possible. As much as possible, you should be consistent. But it does not necessarily mean that you only use one for the entire document. You are also advised to do a combination of these 3. but as much as possible, you limit the way you cite your references. But all these three can be used, depending on how you think the presentation could be, or the idea could be presented well, I should say. And so on. So you just go over this presentation. I'll not discuss this anymore one at a time. Anyway, I know that you were able to discuss some, if not all of these, in language courses that you have taken when you were in your basic education or even in your college days. So if you've taken some language courses like English, Filipino, you might have had some discussions on how to cite references and how to state your references in the discussions. So that would not be discussed in detail. And then we have here the proposal guide. If you have taken MITCC01 with me, you are familiar with this. So this is what we would be doing. And recall when you were taking CC01, I mentioned that what we did in MITCC01 is similar with what you would be doing in your capstone project. So it's a simulation of the activities that will be done for capstone project. So you may be familiar with this document that I'm currently. So the first thing that you need to do for capstone project is to identify a social issue. That's the first thing that you need to do. You need to look at the society, whether it's the society where you are a part of, or it could be on a different area, different location, as long as there is a social problem that is identified, recognized, and there is a need for that social problem to be addressed. But of course, on top of identifying the presence of a social issue, we also need to see to it that the social issue has IT solution and has business value. Let me just get my drawing pen. So we have here the social issue. So this is the first thing that you need to do in Capstone Project 1. So you need to look for a social issue. So a social issue is a problem in the society. So whether it's the society where you are a part of, or it could be on another area, as long as there is a social issue. And of course, as I was saying earlier, it is important that it has an IT solution. Do not think of a social issue which is or which does not have or is not practical to be solved using IT solutions. And of course, it should have a business value. Remember, you are all enrolled in MIT with a track of PSM, Professional Science Masters. The PSM track of the MIT program is a combination of technology and business concepts. This is the reason why there should be a business value for the social issue. So please see to it that these two are present. There are IT solutions, or IT solutions can be proposed to solve the problem, and there's a business value. Or in simple terms, if you say business value, you could think of a way on how you could commercialize it. You could think of a way on how you could earn from it. That's what we mean by a business value. Of course, there are some social issues where it may not be, let me think of a better term. It might not be ethical. I guess ethical would be a better term. It might not be ethical for you to think about business values. A good example is, if you are thinking of a solution to solve problem during the pandemic. So you need to think, is it ethical for me to think of an IT solution to this problem brought by the pandemic, and for me to think of earning from it? So is it ethical or not? So we'll also be looking into that, because you might be proposing a solution to a social problem where there are ethical concerns. So it might not be ethical for us to be talking about business solutions, business values of these solutions to that particular social issue or social problem. So that would not be considered. A good example is, let me just recall, there were students in the past who were proposing some online solutions to problems during the pandemic. And some of these proposals were rejected because our argument is that it is not ethical for us to be thinking about earning money from these solutions to problems brought by the pandemic. So that's something that you need to take note of. So social issue. And of course, since we're talking about social issues, we're talking about IT solutions, and we're talking about business values, there are other things that we need to put into consideration. So one thing that we need to also consider would be the application of the fourth industrial revolution. So if we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, we are mostly talking about giving some autonomy, some intelligence to information systems or information solutions or IT solutions. So this is one thing that you need to take note of. So aside from the social issue can be addressed by an IT solution, aside from the social issue has a business value, how can we implement technologies of the fourth industrial revolution for the solution of the social issue? So to be more specific, you might be talking here about concepts like machine learning. How can I use machine learning in my IT solution to address the social issue? Or aside from machine learning, other concepts like blockchain technology. How can I use blockchain technology in my IT solution to address the social issue? Or in the past, there were a lot of students who were working on IoT. How can I integrate IoT in my IT solution to address the social issue? But just a caution, if you are going to work on the IT solution, please refrain from focusing on the hardware. So remember, you are enrolled in Mastering Information Technology, MIT. So although you are using IoT devices, you should not focus on the hardware. You should not focus on the devices. Instead, you should focus on the system that would be used to manage and utilize the IoT. So what's a good example of this? There were students in the past who were proposing IoT solutions for farming. So there were those who were proposing putting some sensors in the soil, on the surroundings of the farm to monitor the condition of the soil in terms of nutrients, in terms of how dry or wet the soil, and so on and so forth. If there are some insects living in the soil, and even the surrounding. Is the surrounding humid? Is it hot? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? So they were proposing, a lot of students were proposing putting these sensors in the soil, in the water, and even in the surroundings of the farm. But they were focusing on the installation and the setting up of the hardware. So we rejected the proposal. It is true that it is important, it is required for you to put some sample setup just for us to see that it's really working. But that's not the focus of your study. Your focus should be on how you would be able to control the devices, How would you be able to get the data from the devices? And how would you be able to manage and transform the data into something which is useful? So that's what I mean earlier when I said you should focus on the system and not on the hardware. So hardware would still be a part, but that should not be the focus of your study. So I'm already telling you as early as now, because I know there are a lot of you who are already thinking of putting IoT as a component of your IT solution to the social problem. So if that is the case, you will still be doing some setup of the devices just to show that it works, but that's not the focus of your study. The focus of your study would be on the system needed to monitor, maintain the setup, collect data, and to transform the data into something useful. So I hope that is clear. Now, aside from the fourth industrial revolution, there are other factors that should be considered, like the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. So this should also be considered. So which of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals would your study support? So we will be looking into this. We have to see that the problem that you are trying to solve is a real problem in the society. So you need to prove to us, you need to show us proof that that problem is really encountered in the society. You also need to prove to us that there are IT solutions, or IT solution is the way to solve the problem. So why did I say IT solution is the way to solve the problem? Because there were also some instances in the past where there were students who were proposing some IT solutions to a social problem. But after a careful study and consideration, we learned that the problem can easily be solved by doing a simple manual activity and not necessarily the development of an information system. So if we see that the social issue that you are trying to solve is something that can be solved, and the best solution, it's not simply it can be solved, but the best solution would be a simple manual solution, then we will not accept your proposal. So you need to show us that the best solution really would be that IT solution that you are proposing. And of course, since you are enrolled in PSM, you also need to show to us that there is a business value. You can commercialize your proposal. You can earn money from it. And on top of that, we are going to look into the innovation that you would be doing in relation to the fourth industrial revolution. And of course, since this is a social issue, how would your solution support the achievement of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals? Well, of course, it does not mean that you need to solve all, or you need to, or your study needs to address all the 17. So your study should be aligned to at least one of the 17. And then, again, this is just a review of what we have learned in CCO1. Once we are done with our social issue, the next step would be for us to study the social issue. So this is where the 5 why analysis would come in. So you would also be asked to do the 5 why analysis here. So in the 5 why analysis, you start with the social issue. So what is that problem that we are referring to here? It's the social issue. So what do we want to do here? We want to know the root causes of the social issue. Root causes meaning, what are the reasons why the social issue is encountered? So why do we want to know the root cause? Because by solving the root cause, we are minimizing the probability of the problem to occur in the future. Because if we just solve the immediate cause of the problem, solving the immediate cause of the problem might not reduce the probability. So in most cases, it will not really reduce the probability of encountering the same problem in the future. So remember the example that I gave you before. You attend the class and then you feel sick in the morning. So you try to study the reasons why you feel sick in the morning every time you attend your class. So the main reason why you are sick in the morning is because you are hungry. So you might say, tomorrow, for me not to be sick, I am gonna eat. But if you're gonna eat tomorrow, would that mean that the problem would be solved in the future as well? Not necessarily. That's just a temporary solution. Not unless you could prove and say that starting tomorrow, I will eat breakfast every day. If you can prove that, then that is now a good solution. But if you cannot prove that you would be able to eat breakfast every day starting tomorrow, then eating breakfast tomorrow not a good solution to solving the problem of you feeling sick every time you attend your classes in the morning. So this is where the why analysis would come in. 5 why analysis. So you need to know why you are not able to eat your breakfast. And then check, is that the or is that a problem that can be solved so that in the future the probability of the problem occurring would be reduced? If yes, then that's what you solve. If no, then you study further until you get the main cause. So if you could recall in that particular example, what was our solution? You get out from the relationship that you are in, because the relationship that you are in is the root cause of you feeling sick in the morning every time you attend your class. Because there's a cycle and there is a series of causes and effects. If you could recall, we said you do not feel well, you feel sick because you are hungry. You're hungry because you do not eat breakfast. You do not eat breakfast because you do not have time to eat breakfast. You do not have time to eat breakfast because you wake up late. You wake up late because you sleep late. You sleep late because you need to talk to someone. You need to talk to that someone late at night because otherwise you would be in a fight, and so on and so forth. So we mentioned that for us to eliminate really the problem is for you to get out of that relationship. So if you get out of that relationship, there's no need for you to stay late at night. There's no need for you to sleep late at night. Then there should be no reason for you to wake up late at night, in the morning, I should say. Then you would have time to eat. So you would not feel hungry if you are in class. So you would not feel sick. So in the future, you know that that would always be the case, because you know that you will never be or you would always have time to eat your breakfast. So that's what you mean by root causes. So once you are done proving that the social issue is something worthy for you to study, the next would be for you to show that you have a full and clear understanding of the study. So this is where your root cause analysis, in particular the 5 why analysis, would come in. Of course, the solutions here are the solutions to the root causes. And these solutions are the rough. These are the rough features. Features of what? Your solution, your IT solution. So the rough features, I say rough features because these are not yet the actual features of your system. You're just saying that the system can do this, the system can do that, but you are not yet discussing the details of how it will do it. Like you could simply say, the system will reserve subjects for the student. But you do not give details yet, like how will the subject reservation be done? What are the parameters? What are the prerequisites? You do not discuss yet these details of the system implementation. You're just saying that the system can do this, period. But how it does it? What are the requirements? What are the prerequisites? What are the conditions? What are the requirements? These are not yet included. So this is your analysis of the social issue. And then from there, you now do a further study by doing the business model canvas and the Javelin validation board. So what do you do in the business model canvas and the Javelin validation board? So if you notice, the rough solutions from our root cause, the root causes that we were able to identify, are now fed into the business model canvas and the Javelin validation board. In particular, we check if these are really the features that are needed. So remember, when you did your Javelin validation board and your business model canvas, you did some testings. You talked to actual people and you verified whether these features that you have in mind are good features and are acceptable features. Acceptable by whom? Your target users. So there you go. And then from there, you would see that the features are mapped to the actors. So you see that the features are mapped to the actors. So it's visible here. These are the actors, and the actors are mapped to the features. In particular, you could see this here below. Just erase. So you would see here that the actors are mapped to the features. And that's particularly shown in the Javelin validation board. Actor C1 would be mapped to 2 features. Actor C2 would be mapped to 2 features. So the Javelin validation board and the business model canvas would be our tool to say that the rough features that we were able to identify are correct because these are also the features that are needed by actual users. So that's the Javelin validation board and the business model canvas. So here, from here, you would say that the social issue as an IT solution, the IT solution is an appropriate solution and it has a business value. On top of that, I make use of some concepts, some innovative technologies, models from the fourth industrial revolution. And my proposal is also aligned to the achievement of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So that's the social issue. And then what do we do next? We verify what are the root causes. Because from the root causes, we will be able to identify our rough solutions. So once the rough solutions are identified, we refine the rough solutions by talking to actual people, actual customers, actual target users of your information system, and verifying, cleaning your data until you are left with a matching of the users with what they want your system to be able to do. So these are the value propositions and the customer segment. Then from here, of course, you now know this. We have the integration of these rough features into our plan of the system by transforming these rough features into actual features in the system. And of course, the tool that you'll be using here will be UML. Yes, that's true. UML is the tool that you'll be using in your capstone project document. So in particular, you would be using the use case diagram, you would be using the class diagram, you would be using what else? Aside from the class diagram, you would be using all these 5 diagrams. So the use case diagram, the class diagram, the sequence diagram, the package diagram, and the deployment diagram. All these 5 diagrams should be present in your manuscript. Anyway, we'll be discussing this later because these are not yet needed in your capstone project 1. So for capstone project 1, what's needed would be up to verifying yet the features or verifying, just verifying, I should say, the features. So hanggang dito lang muna yung inyong capstone project 1. In your capstone project 2, this is where you would now do the actual design and development of the system. So you would be doing this in capstone project 2. And then we have here the capstone manuscript template. You would see that there are 2 uploaded files. There are 2 uploaded files. The first file is in Word document format and the second file is in PDF file. These are actually the same. The content of these 2 files are the same. It's just that I uploaded 2, document and PDF, because sometimes if we upload documents in Canvas and we download it, there are some distortions on the formatting. So for you to have a guide on how the format should look like, I also uploaded a PDF file. So let's just look at the PDF file. Anyway, the document and PDF file are the same. These are the things that you would be placing in your manuscript. So first, you have your title page. Obviously, you need to put the title of your study. And then you just copy the next group of text, a capstone project presented to the faculty of the graduate school, College of Information Technology, Computer Science, University of the Cordilleras, in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree Master in Information Technology. So for the title page, what you would be changing would be, as I mentioned earlier, just the title and the details below. So you are gonna write your name, first name, followed by middle name and family name. And then the month and year below your name should be the month and year of your defense. So if you defend on August 2023, then that should be August 2023. If you defend on September, that's September 2023. Then we have here the approval sheet. This is the approval sheet for Capstone Project 1. There's a different approval sheet for Capstone Project 2, the final approval sheet. So here, again, you just change the name, the project, the title of the project, the name of the author, the name of the advisor, the name of the panel members. We will be the one to, or will help you out later in identifying your panel and advisor. So you would be assigned one advisor who would advise you in Capstone Project 1 and Capstone Project 2. And you would also be assigned 3 panelists. 2 of the panel members would be internal, meaning from UC, and 1 external. We have a pool of external panel members. But if you have a particular person in mind which you want to sit as an external panel member, you could inform us. But of course, we need to verify first the identity of that person, and then we need to seek approval, permission from that person. So there were instances in the past where students recommended their external panel. And there were instances where the request was approved. There were also some instances where the requests were not approved. So it depends. Because the external panel, of course, there are some requirements, like the panel member should be a graduate of a master's degree aligned to the program that you are enrolled in. So in particular, the external panel member should be a master degree holder in IT or in computer science or in information systems and other information that are needed. And then we have here table of contents. Again, you just change the page numbers. There's no need for you to change the text of the table of contents, just the page numbers, because the parts will not change. Do not remove any part. Do not include additional parts. Just change the pages of the table of contents. And then we have here appendix is still a part of the table of contents. This is what I was saying earlier. If you recall, when we were talking about some format, you notice in the table, in the title page, there's no header, title, and page number. Likewise, in the approval sheet, look at this. For table of contents, the first page, no header and page number. But look at the second page. There is a header and page number. This is what I meant earlier when I said the first pages should not have any information on the header. There should be no header information. Only the second up to the last page. We'll see that here. List of figures, there's only one page. List of tables, there's only one page. Chapter 1, let's see. Chapter 1, page 1, no header, footer. Or no header, I should say. No header information. Chapter 2, we have their project overview, page 8. Similarly with chapter 2, no header and page number. But on the second page, you have their methodology, page 10. Methodology, page 11. And then the references, that's also true. The first page for references, no header and page number. First page of appendices, no header and page number. So what do we write in the header? What we write in the header is the title of the section. Look at this. This is section project overview. So in the header, it's project overview. This is section methodology. So in the header, it's methodology. Similarly with this section is appendices. So the other pages would also be appendices. But anyway, this is the last document that you would be writing. This is not the first thing that you need to do. So we will be giving you 2 weeks to do this. So why 2 weeks? Because we want you to do this seriously. So you do this seriously. Of course, the deadline there is not February 11. I'll change that later because this is the activity last term or last year. So for this particular activity, this activity should be done individually because capstone project is done individually. So I want you to write a proposal. So your proposal should contain the following. So it should contain an overview of the social issues or issue that you want to address. So this part of the proposal shall focus on the problem that you wish to address. This problem should be a problem of an organization, group of people, or specific locality that affects the society. The problem should also be aligned to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. Number 2, overview of the innovative solution. So to address the social issue. So this particular part of the proposal shall focus on the innovative IT solution that will be proposed to address the social issue. So the social issue or the solution, I should say, should include innovative trends such as IoT, machine learning, blockchain, and sustainability and value such as deployment and business plan. So if you look at the content of number 1 and number 2, these are the first part of the plan of the capstone project. You have a social issue. The social issue should be addressed by an IT solution. The IT solution should have a business value, and then the IT solution and business value should be aligned to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and you have the implementation of the 4th Industrial Revolution. And then number 3, you need to do a review of related literature. So this part of the proposal shall focus on proving that the proposal is achievable by citing relevant and related researches that were done in the past. Now, what you would be looking for here is not a similar study, but related. Sir, what if we found a similar study? If we say similar, pareho. If you found a similar study, then that means that what you are doing is just a duplicate of something that had already been done in the past. So you change it. Thus, what you should look for are related. So does that mean, sir, that we should deliberately look for related only and not similar? Of course not. What I'm simply saying here is that in your review of literature, you should only see similar, or you should only see related and not similar. Because once you see a similar study, a similar paper, then as I mentioned earlier, that simply means that you are just duplicating something that had already been done in the past. Not unless you propose to do some major innovations in that study that was published by a researcher in the past. You can do that. Like a major revision on the models used, a major revision on the techniques used. So that can be done. Or localizing the study to a specific locality where there would be a major change on the nature of the data as inputs. There would be a major change on the rules for predicting based on the data. If that would be the case, then that's okay. Because that means that you would do some major overhauling, major revisions on the study that was done in the past. And of course, number 4, references. So this part of the proposal shall give details of the cited references. So this is activity number 1. You would be given 2 weeks to do this. And your proposal should look something like this. So there should be exactly 1 page. Exactly 1 page of what? Overview of the social issue. Of course, I just placed here some dummy data, but what you would be writing here would be actual data. This is what I was saying earlier. When I uploaded the file, the title of the second page moved to the first page. Supposedly, this should be on the next page because this is just for the overview. The first page should just be for the overview. And the second page should just be for the overview of innovative solution. So this is the reason why I sometimes upload 2 versions of the file or 2 formats of the file, one in document and one in PDF. So the PDF would be for you to use as a guide in the format. And of course, the document is for you to use as template because you could just use directly the document with minimal alterations on the formatting. So 1 page overview of the social issue, 1 page overview of the innovative solution to address the social issue, and how many pages? I guess this is 3 pages. Exactly 3 pages. Not lesser than 3, not more than 3, but exactly 3 pages of review of related literature. So what are you going to put in the review of related literature? You're going to look for literature that would support your proposal. But of course, as I mentioned, your proposal should be unique and should have not been done in the past. So, sir, what do you mean by that? Related but not similar. Assuming you want to do image recognition, image processing for, what's a good example? You want to do image processing for cabbage. You want to do image processing for cabbage. So you did review of related literature and you were not able to find anything that talks about image processing for cabbage. So that's a good thing because that means that what you're proposing is something that had not yet been done in the past. That's a good thing. So, sir, what are we going to look for? You're going to look for literature that are a little bit close but not exact with your proposal. So you want to do image processing for cabbage. In particular, you want to determine if the cabbage leaf is infested by insects, of course, if it's infested or not. And then you would be using CNNs, for example. That's your idea. So in your review of related literature, you should not find any paper talking about doing image recognition to determine if the cabbage leaf is infested or not using CNN. So you should not find anything similar to that. What you should find would be using CNN to detect infested plants, but not cabbage, other plants. So that's a good example of a related study, but not similar. Because that study talks about the use of CNNs, for example, in detecting whether leaves of other plants are infested or not. So these are the types of studies that you should be able to see and put in your review of related literature as proof that what you are proposing is feasible, because there are studies in the past or studies conducted by other researchers showing that what you want to do is feasible, since there are similarities of what they were able to do. And lastly, we have the references. So this is your first requirement. This is your first requirement. So your first requirement is to create a proposal. I'll show you a summary of the deliverables. If you notice, once you are done with the proposal, the next deliverable would be for you to do an analysis of the social problem. So this is activity number 1. This is activity number 2. Look at activity number 2. Because activity number 1 would give us an overview of the social issue, would give us an overview of the IT solution, would give us an overview as well of the feasibility of the study. So how do we say that the study is feasible? By showing other studies that were conducted. And then in step number 2, once you are done analyzing the social issue, the IT solution, and the feasibility, you now go in the analysis of you now go to the analysis of the problem. So this is where your 5 why analysis would come in. 5 why analysis. So that's activity number 2. And then obviously for activity number 3, you need to verify the rough features from your 5 why analysis using the business model canvas and the Javelin validation board. All of these would be used for activity number 4. So what is activity number 4? This is now your capstone proposal. The document that I showed you earlier, and your basis for the capstone proposal would be the outputs of the first 3 activities. So meaning it would be difficult or it would be challenging for you to do the proposal immediately without you knowing yet about the problem and the solution. So this is the reason why there are activities that you need to work on before working on the actual capstone project proposal. So we will be doing all of this until July. Until July. Because our target is for you to do your presentation by August. So August is the defense. For those who are enrolled in the MIT Region 1 group, we will be going over to Region 1 for the defense. For those who are enrolled in the Bicol region group, we will be going over to Bicol for the presentation. And of course, for those who are enrolled in the local program over there at UC, you need to come over to UC for the presentation. Any questions so far? I've been talking for more than 1 hour na pala. Are there any questions? Clarifications? Any? Ibrahim, are you already here? Yeah, I see Ibrahim. Ibrahim?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Please say something so they would recognize you. I guess some of them were your students in the past, Ata, but I'm not sure if you handled all of them.
I don't think so. Well, either way, just to do a quick greeting. Hello, everyone. Apologies for being a bit late. So yeah, I'll be handling, I believe, the local MIT UC.
And
A bit of Region 1, I think.
Handle Region 1.
Yes,
I
sir.
guess. I'm the instructor for the Bicol region group. Ibrahim is the instructor for the local class. And then hati kami, 50-50 for the Region 1 class.
Yes, sir. So yeah, nice to see you guys. I think some of you were my students previously, so good to see you all again. I'll be your advising you guys for half for Region 1 and for the local as well. Just to clarify, sir, because I was checking Canvas, will this be published later on? Because I think right now it's just the Zoom meeting links.
Yes, after the meeting.
I see, sir. We have a question here, sir, in the chat. Glad to meet you again. May I know if we could do the project theoretically only?
No. You need to develop a system. So there should be a system development. Not unless there were those who tried to propose before some theoretical concepts, although the students did not push and they changed their study to development. Because if you say theoretical, like you're gonna develop an algorithm, that's okay. But we do not usually recommend that to MIT students. For the MSCS, yes, we could recommend that. Developing an algorithm, developing a model, you could do that, an IT model. These are examples of theoretical by nature, where you would not be having development of complex systems. But these are more challenging because there are activities that should be done for you to prove that, say, for example, your algorithm works and your algorithm works better than the other existing algorithms, or your model works and your model is able to solve these kinds of problems or is able to support this kind of IT solutions. You can do that. And of course, there should still be a little development just to show that the algorithm works and just to show that the model works.
And so, as mentioned by Sir, it should be an actual system. We have another question here, Sir. For the Capstone Project 1, it will focus more on documentation, and Capstone 2 will focus more on development. I guess will it be similar to the undergrad?
For Capstone Project 1, it's the proposal, but we would be asking you to do some prototypes just to prove that your proposal really works. But yeah, that's true. For Capstone Project 1, chapters 1 and 2 of the manuscript, plus some initial prototypes just to show that your system is really feasible. But in Capstone Project 2, that's where you will complete the entire manuscript, and that's where you will complete the running system. There's another question here. Sir, do we need to do the 3 activities before the approval of our title and before having our set of panel and advisor? Yes, you need to do the 3 activities first. The first activity is where we will guide you on the idea. Of course, the title should be done last. So the first activity is where we will guide you on the idea. We'll check whether your idea is feasible or not. We'll check whether your idea is a good proposal or not in terms of the requirements for MIT. Because of course, since you are in the MIT program, your requirements should be higher than the requirements of the undergrad. So that's what we want to see in your activity number 1. How comprehensive and what's the level of the proposal, the project that you want to work on. And then in activity number 2, that's where we want to verify. Aside from what you are proposing is technologically feasible and it's usable initially based on our analysis, we need also to prove that your proposal is something that is really useful for people. So that's activity number, that's activity number 3, I guess. Activity number 2 is where you would be verifying your understanding. So that's correct. In activity number 1, it's just laying down the foundation of your proposal for us to see whether you know what you are proposing and you have a clear understanding of what you want to do. That's activity number 1. In activity number 2, it's more on understanding the nature of the problem that you're working on by doing some analysis of what the problems really are that should be addressed in your solution. And in activity number 3, this is where, as I've mentioned earlier, you will be talking to actual people who would be using your proposal for you to show and verify that indeed what you are proposing is something that they need, something that they want, and something that they would be using. From there, you would be writing your paper. And part of the paper that you would be writing is the title of your proposal. And it's only when you are done writing your chapter 1 and 2 that we would be endorsing you to your advisor and panel member. Is there a number of RRL? Again, the answer there would be it depends. It depends on the nature of the study that you're conducting. If you're studying something that is commonly studied, then you should have more literature. But if the study that you're studying is not a common area for research, then we expect that you only have a few literature. A good example would be the study on human cloning. Though this is not an IT example, but this is a good example. In human cloning is not accepted ethically and legally. So it is not legal to clone people. So it's illegal and it's not ethical. It's ethical and it's illegal to clone people. So we do not expect a lot of paper on human cloning. So we do not expect you to have a lot of references on human cloning. But animal cloning is accepted and is commonly done. There are countries who does animal cloning. So we expect that you would have more references. So in terms of the number of references, it depends on the nature of the study that you're conducting. A good example is in machine learning. A lot of studies are in image processing. So we expect that you have a lot of references. In comparing, for example, image processing and natural language processing, currently there are more studies on natural language processing because of of ChatGPT. Because of ChatGPT, a lot of people are interested on conducting studies on natural language processing. So there's an increase on the number of researches on natural language processing as compared to image processing. So if that's the case, then we expect that there are more references on natural language processing as compared to image processing. In terms of recency, because you might also be asking, how about the recency of the papers that you would be using? Again, that depends on the nature of the study that you're conducting. So if the study that you're conducting is a commonly studied area, then we expect that you have a lot of, we expect that there are more recent or newer papers as compared to an area that is not commonly studied. A good example would be, again, natural language processing and image processing. Because of ChatGPT, recently there are a lot of people interested in doing natural language processing as compared to number of people doing image processing. So in terms of recency, we could say probably for image processing, we could consider references for the past year. But for natural language processing, because of the spike on the number of researchers, we'll just consider papers published in the last 6 months. So something like. So the number of references and then the recency of the references would all depend on the nature of the study that you are conducting. Good evening, sir. For the advisor, sir, will it be our choice? For the advisors, you could recommend, but it's not guaranteed that the advisor would be the assigned advisor because there's a limit on the number of advices. So a faculty member can only serve as an advisor for a specific number and can also serve as a panel for a specific number. So first come, first serve. So if you want an advisor, or if you have an advisor in mind, then be sure that you are the first one to finish the proposal, because we only assign advisor and panel once you are done with the proposal document. So be sure that you are the first one, because if you're the first one, you have the freedom to choose from any of the faculty members to serve as your panel and advisor. And of course, if you are the last, then you don't have choice but to choose from the remaining faculty members. And if you do not know them, then we will be the one to assign who will be your advisor and panel member. So you could recommend, and if the faculty is still available, we could assign. Otherwise, you need to choose from other faculty members, or we will be the one to assign.
Hello, sir. Just
Yes.
to add to that, since in relation to that, because Lovely was asking this, what about the external panel, sir? Does it have to be an industry expert or someone from the academe but just outside UC?
For external panel, it doesn't matter if the panel is a member of another educational institution or the panel is an industry practitioner. Our minimum requirement is that the panel has a master's aligned to the program. So the panel should either be an MIP, MSCS, or MIS graduate.
Noted, sir. I'll inform Ma'am of that. Thank you.
And then, of course, we have a pool of external panel members we could recommend. The students could also recommend if they know some who they want to serve as external panel member. But they need to give us details because we will be reviewing and we will be doing approval whether we will allow that recommended external panel member to sit or not. Other concerns? At your end, Ibrahim, do you have other concerns? Do you have some messages sent by the students directly to you?
So far, none, sir. I'm not seeing here none here in
Yeah.
Canvas.
I do not also see other directed questions to me. So
I
yes,
guess,
Ibrahim.
sir, just to clarify, since we have the BMC, I don't, maybe I missed it, but does this have to be recorded? I mean, like the interviews with the, let's say, clients or target users, does there have to be like recorded media, like pictures of, let's say, the researcher interviewing the target users?
Yes, there should be. There should be proof like photos, interview transcripts, screenshots. And in relation to that, you need to do this seriously because this will be a part of your final manuscript later. So later on, you would be asked to put either a business model canvas and a Javelin validation board or a design thinking document. So you could use your business model canvas and Javelin validation board. So this would really be a part of your manuscript later. So you need to work on these requirements seriously. And of course, that's correct, Ibrahim. They need to document because that would be a part of the document of their final manuscript.
Noted, sir. We have a new question that was sent here on the chat. Are we allowed to go to the UC library if we ever have a chance?
Yes, as long as you have a UC ID, you could go to the library. Other concerns, Ibrahim? Otherwise, we'll end the meeting. It's already 6:45.
Upon checking here, sir, no messages on my end. Oh, we have a new message here. Are the available books for our little library, sir?
The review of related literature, we do not recommend you to go to the library because we are in the IT field and a lot of these papers that are bounded, printed are already obsolete. So we recommend you to go to online resources. And in relation to that, please limit your literature to papers that are indexed by Scopus or Web of Science. So let me repeat that. We do not recommend you to go to the library and do review of related literature because the resources that are found in the library are usually obsolete in terms of research. For us in the IT field, because we know that there is a fast transition of technology and concepts, theories, models in IT. So once a reference is printed and placed in the library, it may already be obsolete. Unlike in other fields where the theories, concepts are the same, does not change, so you could go to the library and do a review of related literature. So for your requirements, I recommend that you do online review of related literature, online searching of references. So look for research papers that are published in journals that are indexed by Scopus and Web of Science. So I guess that's it, Ibrahim. As I mentioned earlier, after our meeting, we will be uploading in your Canvas the resources that I've showed you. So likewise with the updated activity number 1. So activity number 1 will be submitted 2 weeks from now. When is 2 weeks from now? June 17. So June 17 is the due date for activity number 1, the proposal activity. So any last words, Ibrahim, before we end?
None, sir, on my end. Oh, for the consultation, sir, we will have it on Sundays or during our regular weekdays.
No consultations. This is the difference between capstone project and the academic courses. In the academic courses, we have regular meetings. For capstone project, we do not. So you need to check regularly Canvas to see our scheduled meetings. So all our meetings would be online. If you want to come over and do an in-person consultation, you could do that, but please inform us first before coming to UC. Do not just come to UC and look for us. So tell us your intention, and then we will schedule a common time before you come over to UC. So you could do in-person consultation with any of the faculty members, not just me, not just Ibrahim. If you want to consult some of your previous teachers on some topics, you could also consult them. You could also schedule an in-person consultation.
Noted, sir. We have
No, you are not allowed to submit multiple proposals. We allowed that in the past, and we did not have a good experience when we allowed students submitting multiple proposals. Because if we allow you to submit multiple proposals, you will just submit whatever you have in mind. So we want you to really think and prioritize one proposal. If your proposal will not be accepted, then we'll ask you to revise it until it would be accepted. Or if your proposal is not accepted, it's up to you if you want to change it. But you should submit one proposal at a time. Do not submit multiple proposals. So you need to prioritize. There were instances in the past where a student submitted 3 proposals, only to find out that the interest of the student is not in any of the 3. So we want you to really think and decide what you want to study. You just think of spare proposals just in case we do not approve your initial proposal. But it's rare for us to disapprove a proposal if you really thought of the proposal seriously. And as long as you would be able to prove to us that it is a real existing problem, it has an IT solution, it has business viability, it supports the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, and it implements some innovative technologies, then it would be accepted. It's rare for us to disapprove proposals that would meet all these minimum requirements. So I guess that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Ibrahim.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Just check regularly your Canvas for postings, and then just send us a message if you have some concerns. Especially as I mentioned earlier, if you want to do an in-person consultation, please consult us first before coming to UC. No, I mean, please ask us first to schedule before coming to UC.
Noted, sir.
Okay. So thank you. I'll now be ending the meeting in 5 seconds.
Bye, sirs. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bye po, sir. Thank you po.
Bye po, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, sir. Thank you po, Sir Jan.
Direct po, sir.